Hello everybody, welcome back to SketchCraft Live. Welcome back. You have returned. Okay, so on with that. So we're continuing this. Turn on the light. We're continuing where we left off with the Voldemort. Zoom out just one more. Voldemort. No, it's Voldemort. Right? So J.K. Rowling says. So now we're going to work on doing the background. Now, I have a rough guide here that I went and did. There's already a video up for this. It's called Voldemort Copic Color Guide. That video's up. So I'm going to attempt to apply this basic idea to this. Obviously, some things are going to change. The figure here is much bigger than on my roughie, my little sketchbook here. So there's that. And then figure out the rest as we go, basically. 1 second. Let me just make sure everything's up and running. Bum, 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 Why don't we start with cracked pistachio? Let me see here. Cracked pistachio. Boosh. You know, with all transparent medium, the trick is to stay light and go dark, right? So don't feel like you have to start smearing shit around. We're going to gently put the same color over the snake to push the snake back into the background. Call this glazing. So he will pop forward. We're going to leave that part open a little bit more. Have you tried drawing on an iPad Pro? Yeah, I have an iPad Pro. We'll be doing some more videos on that soon. If you check my Instagram, I post that stuff. I have videos and stuff there on that. We'll be doing YouTube videos on that in the next couple weeks. See? Boom! Look at that shit. I'm gonna do a whole video on what I think and what to use and shit like that. Let that sit there for a second. And then we'll get out Twisted Citron. Sub potato, Twisted Citron. I just started Sky. There's a part 1 from what I did last night up on the stream. I'll add thumbnails later tonight. Thumbnails and title. So I try to do that at night between 8 and 9 because the YouTube will eat up my whole day updating that. So I have to limit myself how many hours I can spend updating the YouTube. I'll be doing this for at least another hour or two. I had to run some errands this morning, so I'm a little behind schedule. And then this is getting done today either way, so it's either It's after dinner, between 9 and 10 or so. I'll pick it back up until it's done, one way or the other. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know. I'll make a little art tip video, you know? October, that would be amazing. As long as it's really good, right? Yeah, my two favorite superhero things. Well, I thought Deadpool was great. Daredevil season 2 is great. And One Punch Man. One Punch Man's probably my favorite. And then I guess Civil War. That was fun. But One Punch Man's my favorite. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe it's Moomin Rider, you know? I love Moomin Rider. Maybe the love triangles between Moomin Rider and Genos. You know? Standing up pedal mode. It's my favorite. Oh, you gotta watch One Punch Potato. It needs to dry for just a little bit. Let that dry for a little bit. You gotta watch it with the subtitles though. The Japanese acting is perfection. One Punch. You know, we did a One Punch recap. We did all episodes. It's in the playlist. It's because we all did Justice Crash when we were kids, right? We just didn't know that's what we were doing. Alright, so I'm going to use some Salty Ocean here. Which is a more saturated blue. But when you put it over the teals and greens, you get nice aqua green coloration. You know, the trick with transparent medium is contrast. You know, and how to create that contrast takes practice and patience. Do I have any live streams for digital drawings? Yeah, I have a playlist called Realtime Art. So in the playlist, I record pretty much everything. So if you want to see digital drawing, if you want to see Copic colors, they're all in there. I just did a two-parter. I did the Battletoads, which is all digital inking and drawing. That's recent. Plus the Jungle Girl, which is digital drawing. Plus there's the digital coloring. So it's filled with hundreds of hours of material. My name is Rob. Yeah, Rob. At the beginning of the video, I said, "Hi, I'm Rob Duenas. Welcome to SketchCraft." Sucker. No. Gotcha. Snared you. Trapped you. I find SketchCraft just easier to remember for most people. If you want my honest opinion. So I don't care if you call me Rob or Sketch. I don't. Either way. Yeah, no problem. But yeah, there's real-time playlists. There are speed paints with commentary or speed drawings, you know. Some of those are 20 minutes, 30 minutes. There's a 3 hour long, the one I did with the Star Wars piece, which is full of commentary and just it covers the entire process from drawing to coloring. I also talk about my history with Star Wars. That's a fun one. Do you ever use color pencil because I was trying to figure out how to do it? Yeah, I use color pencils with this. So all the time in all my little commission pieces you see here, I'll use color pencils to blend in additional colors and do glows and stuff. And color blending and stuff. So that's why I found with the Copics it's better to have a limited color Copic palette and then do everything else that I need to get done with color pencil. So if you look at like even if you look at the Kill La Kill or even the Vader one, I'm using color pencil along with Distress Ink and Copics. I don't think I would do just a piece in color pencil. It would just kill my knuckles. I'm very protective over the whole carpal tunnel thing. Back in like 2008, I had severe carpal tunnel. So I have to press lightly. Oh yeah, new Rick and Morty. Can't wait. Let's let this settle a little bit. And actually, while that's doing that, I can work on this bottom piece here a little bit, which I'm going to saturate with some rusty hinge. It needs to. No, it just needs to settle a bit. And then we're going to get to black suit. Let's give that about 3 minutes. All right. Where did I learn to draw like that? Practice. So I'm self-taught. I went to the Art Institute and learned Dick Squat. I learned how to not make 3D very well, and it took me a long time, but I paid off my student loans. And I did it by learning how to do this kind of stuff. So, you could say fear. Fear of failure. Yeah. And then developing a lot of techniques that just help get me past stages that I used to struggle with. Like, drawing in silhouettes is just something that came naturally to me. I just found it easier, you know. But I would be working, like, I worked in t-shirts, and I'd be in an art department, and they go, well, yeah, you gotta draw with stick figures. I'm like, you don't have to fucking do anything, you know. I would sit there and render out little sketches, and, you know, I didn't like the light board, so I'd print things out in low opacity, and they go, you're wasting paper. I'm like, I'm using this to make us money. It's the complete opposite of wasting paper. I'm drawing, you know, and I'm speeding up the process. So, oh my god, a whole sheet of paper up. You know, while like 50,000 T-shirts are sitting up in the warehouse unsold. You know, it's a lot of stuff like that. Well, if I could give any advice when you're young, is to focus on construction. You know, even if you're going to color, you know, you want to render over three-dimensional surfaces. Develop everything three-dimensionally. You know, learn to do sculpting in 3D on top of your drawing. Always do traditional as well as digital. You know, I made them myself. Foam stamps. I cut a piece of block, cut them all down, glued them. Hmm. This is about as much of this distress ink as this thing's going to take. So put on a few little pieces here, and then we'll get to the color pencil portion. All right. Let's put this away. Using distress ink. You could use watercolor, but you would need watercolor paper. So I use this because it's ink, so it's not going to warp the paper. It's not going to warp sketchbooks. There's an art tips video I made on doing backgrounds with Distress Ink. I kind of walk through the whole, what the pads are, how they look, the whole thing. So if you go in there, check that one out, Richard. That'll definitely help. All right, now I'm going to go wash my hands right now. I got a little bit of ink on the side, so give me a few minutes. Yeah, I'd say there's nothing magical about it. I mean, the process looks magical, but the learning of it really is quite step by step. I should really just make a video like, if you're 19, here's what I would recommend you do. I think that might be a good idea. And give you an exact. Like the video I would have probably liked to get when I was 19. Like that's really why I do a lot of this, is because I was really like, believe me, my art was not that great. All right, so I'm going to use cream color pencil here. Don't press super hard when you're using these things. By the way, if you're wondering, I use polychromos for the most part. I have a couple Prismacolors just because, you know, but the polychromos are better. I appreciate it, Mateo. I appreciate the company and the compliments. Feed my ego. Feed me. Yes, yes. Give me your compliments. Nice. Education-y. Hey, you know what? That's a word that works for me around here. Trust me. What a god. Okay, well, hey, if someone says you're a god, you say yes. Do a little bit of lime. It's like a lime yellow. A lot of these are very subtle too. Like you don't, the camera only picks up so much. Like it won't really pick up all of this. I do a little bit of color adjustment on these videos too after they process, just so they can kind of get closer to what these look like in person, but they're always more vibrant. That's the other thing too. Like, I want to make certain that when people buy these things, when they get it, they look better in person than online. I hate it when you're like, oh, that looked amazing. Then you get it, you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. You realize it was just all Instagram filters. No, I don't assure them. Richard, that's how I work. I'm like, look, I don't give refunds. Wait till you get the art. Like that's how I work now. You know, like when they get it, they'll be happy, and if they're not, then oh well. You know, like I know I did a good job, and I don't half-ass anything. So if someone has a problem with something I do, it's because they're trying to rip me off. That's how I feel about it. Period. I mean, that's why I show every step. I'm like, really? So what part of these 12 fucking hours I put into this piece was me jerking off, fucking around, not giving a shit, you know? Yeah, well, no one. I gotta be honest. Having worked in some real shitty art departments, no one on the internet can get to my head. I mean, I used to have employers stand right over me and go, "You're fucking." I mean, no quote unquote. This motherfucker. I used to have the South African guy just owned the place. He'd go, "This fucking dude, he's fucking ripping me off." You know. That was like my first week. And I had already been in the army. I was like, this motherfucker right here, does he know who he's talking to? Like, I will fucking. Like, luckily, you get trained to like hold your bearing, right? But I was like, all right, real interesting situation, you know? I mean, whole threads can be devoted to how my art sucks. It's not gonna phase me. You know? Like, whatever. You know? I don't even know what that is, Solid. That's funny. How often do I stream? I know Crusher would, but that'd be the last time I let Crusher get a piece of art. Like, you're banned. No sketch for you! I don't know if anyone really wants to be known as the sketch Nazi, though. I don't know if that's a good, good sign. How often do I stream? Almost every day. I'm gonna be offline from tomorrow through Sunday, though, so you guys know, or you cats, all you cats out there. Um, I gotta go up to Phoenix, so I won't be streaming until from tomorrow through Sunday. I'll be back on Monday. You can see, like, shit, it's not really picking up. So let me zoom out a little bit, folks, so make sure you get this. But you can see this side doesn't have any of the color pencil, and this side does. So I don't know how well it's coming through here, but it really starts to make a difference, you know, because you can fill in a lot of little gaps in the texturing and glaze colors and add, you know, saturated colors into the shadows, which is always important, you know, especially around the edges of blacks to kind of really saturate it with a dark phthalo light color. But yeah, you know, especially if I don't know what I'm doing. Like with this piece, I didn't really know how I was going to do some of this stuff. So, like the lighting of the background. So I did like the color guide, you know, twice. Actually, I did one that I didn't stream, and then I streamed one. Wanted a second shot at it. So, and I'll do more development when I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, well, okay, like this, like this, like that. That's why, you know, sometimes when people are like, oh, you know, that print's taking a while, I'm like, I didn't know how to do some of that stuff. Like, I came up with the idea, then I was like, how do you actually execute it? You know, like, I don't know. You know, I don't have a me to go talk to. Well, I do, but when me doesn't know, I have to then, you know, do small little experiments to figure out how to do it. I mean, that's the thing too, you know, is like being able to say, okay, you know, what do I want to accomplish? And if, you know, I don't know how to accomplish it, let me start here and do a small little slice of what I'm trying to do and see how, you know, if that can be scaled up. And game development, they call it like a vertical slice, you know? You know all the different systems you have sort of kind of working, then you try to put them together in a small version of the game to kind of get it working and to see what breaks, you know? And then, of course, talking about this kind of shit because, quite frankly, most artists don't. I don't know if it's because they don't know how to articulate it or if they're intentionally not talking about some of the stuff, but a lot of them don't. There's people out there, there's got to be, but I think a lot of them just go, oh, you just do this and you do that, and everything was great. We all had a great time. Everything was perfect. I'm like, no, I fucking, like, that shit sucked, Came out great, but fuck, that was a nightmare, you know? I had to go for like a 12-mile walk after that one because that fucking thing knocked the shit out of me, you know? Yeah. That one I didn't get paid for 90 days because, invoices. Yeah. Publishers like to dick around with they want it now, but they don't want to pay for 90 days. That's always fun. Publishers hate it when I talk about that shit, by the way. But I'm like, well, then fucking pay me on time and don't worry about it. Like, that's why I like the commissions, fan commissions, because people pay up front. I got a whole lot more incentive to work my ass off when the money's already in the bank. You know? Sounds crazy, I know. Oh, who is calling me now? Give me a second. I gotta block that number. But when I did go to the AI, the Art Institute, and I hung out with other artists all the time, I'd see them hiding shit. I'd see one guy like, doing this. I remember he'd always be like, I built a wall, like I'm like, whatever it is you're hiding, dude, they already figured it out 100 years ago. Like I actually find it less about how someone did something and what their thought processes were into figuring out how to do it. You know, because let's say I use color pencils, a certain way, but you use them a different way. The end result can look exactly the same. So how I did it isn't so much important as what the thought process. Why did I use color pencil? That's an important conversation to have. Maybe you could get the same effect using pastel pencils. You don't like color pencils or gouache. The basic idea is that I need a semi-opaque, medium to kind of give me the glows and to fill in all the texturing, and I don't want to warp the paper. So that's the idea, and I'm comfortable with this, and they're cheap, which is really great. Yay, they're cheap, you know. But to say that that process, the exact process, works for you, you know, I don't know. It's like gradient maps. I use gradient maps when I color, and then I don't. I think someone the other day was like, "How come you're not using gradient maps?" I'm like, "Well, seems to be a little bit overkill for what I'm trying to do right here. So sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I don't have a one way. And I've heard artists, man. I've been to many conventions. I've sat next to the biggest pros you can imagine. Like I've sat next to Joe Mad, LaShawn Thomas, Dave Dorman, uh, Mark Bagley, Therese Nielsen, that guy who created the Red Star. I can't remember his name. Um, Eric Larson. You know, and you never hear like those cats, the ones with the super talent, fucking doing shit. But the people who have sort of like pretty good talent, you hear shit from them. Like people steal my techniques. Like oh fuck you and your techniques. Your techniques. And if artists could fucking if creating art was the same as game development, they'd be fucking patent trolling the shit out of everything. I blended colors like this. That's my patent. You can't do that. They'd be spending their whole time litigating other artists out of using color schemes. I guarantee it. Like it's scary as fuck. Like that's right. That's why everyone's stealing your techniques. Vids on the fundamentals and stuff for art scripts like me or aspiring artists. I don't know how much I can give you. Like there are better people to teach the fundamentals. I recommend, and I have made this. I think I made this. I'll have to make this video for certain. If you really want to focus on learning construction and three-dimensional drawing, the best video ever is Scott Robertson's Gnomon video, Fundamentals of Perspective. He's a true master. Everything. I got to be honest. Once a year, once every other year, so depending on how my workload goes, I pop it back open and just go through it again. Not that I don't know it, just to go through it again. It's always good to get word from the master. So when it comes to like very, very basic fundamentals, I think that's the best way to go. Now, applying those techniques into like things like commissions and everyday art, that's something I'm better at doing because Scott Robertson produces very high quality Hollywood level art, which is not really conducive to like a $90 commission. You know what I mean? Or you might be like, I'm never going to be as good as him. So like that's not the point. It's an older Nomon video. You can still find it like on torrents and stuff if you don't have the money. He's made his money back. I bought it like 3 times, so and I really recommend. Like I always tell people, go do that for 6 months and then get back to me. And let me see your progress, and then you might be doing it for another 6 months. I spent years just in my room when I was in the army. I joined the army back in like '98, and got sent over to Germany, and I did it so I could spend years just working on my fundamentals. Learning how to do. That's where I developed the silhouettes, learning, really knowing how to do shit. Because what I didn't want to do was sit around and be like, oh, I magically drew that. Like, I got real lucky that time. I hope if I just play the right music, like Iron Eagle, if I just play the right fucking theme song, I'll just luck my way through this shit. Like, that's not going to work. I mean, it might work sometimes, but can't make a career on it. I hope that works. And so I definitely think, like I said, making one, I'm going to make that in the next week. Like, if you're an aspiring artist, if you're a young artist, especially, whatever age, but it helps if you're younger just because of the time. But, if you're really starting out, here's what I recommend you do. You don't have to be young. I mean, if you're 80, well, I don't know if you're going to have 20 years. Just realistically speaking. There's that. Yeah, they're pretty good, but they're also like drawing like David Finch. And I'm less concerned, like if you want to draw just like David Finch, then there you go. But, I really think that, you have to really understand perspective. You got to know how things look and act three-dimensionally. Because half of what he's teaching too is his own shorthand, things that he's developed over his career that I don't know if that's applicable. Some of it's not applicable to me. I'm like, I would never draw hands like that, What I would rather do is understand how hands look, three-dimensionally, like, Like if I can't see my art three-dimensional, if I can't see things three-dimensionally, then I want, well, how can I make this up dynamic? Now, if you don't care if your art's dynamic or three-dimensional, then everything I'm saying is pointless. You know, it's like the Alvin Lee ones, right? Those are fun to watch and they're pretty cool. But what happens if someone doesn't want to pay you to draw like udon? You know, what do you do then? Well, I guess I'm out of work. Like, no, you know, you know. So like understanding construction means you can apply any style you want over that. It can be realistic, it can be anime, it can be Stephen Platt, it can be David Finch, it can be Jim Lee. It's the under construction that's the most important, you know? And I just think like artists just it's boring to most people, you know? It's not going to get you a ton of likes on fucking Instagram, you know, or Facebook. And I get that. But, you know, you're really good at three-dimensional shapes. When you go to paint, you can paint over three-dimensional surfaces. Like it's the thing to learn. I cannot stress that enough. And if you're not good at it, then well, get good. I wasn't good at a lot of things. I'm going to tell you right now, man. I am living proof that you don't have to start out being great. Was I better than my friends growing up? Sure. You know, but I didn't win our competitions. I'd play somewhere, but I wouldn't win anything. Never won shit. To this day, I won't win. You know, it's not really, you know, but you can get good. But you have to be specific. You know, to get good, you got to be specific, learn something specific, and then, you know, build off that to something else specific. And then give yourself the time, you know, to assemble it all together. I mean, great chefs generally aren't constructed in their 20s. They don't become a great chef until their late 30s or early 40s. And I really think, my honest opinion is, artists are very similar to chefs. Very similar. You know, the biggest difference is chefs get to make the same fucking meal over and over again. Like I draw the same thing twice, and it's like, oh, I've seen that. You know, it's a shame. In that case, in that situation, artists are a little bit more like comedians, right? Where once you do the material, you're like, well, that was that. You know, time to go off and fucking invent a bunch of other shit. You know? Give yourself the time. You know, ignore your friends and family, even the ones that are complimenting you. Ignore them too, because eventually that'll stop. You know, and they could be complimenting you when you're not even like going for that. You're just trying to like focus on this one thing. And I sort of reject over positivity in the same way I reject over negativity. You know, like people that are a little too nice to me, I reject equally as people who are a little too mean or too critical. You know, I mean, I got art friends who are like, you know, Rob, that fucking hand, you know, I don't know, you know, Rob's hands, or you know, I will do a vid showing my old stuff. I just this past year, both my parents died like within a year of one another, and I've been reliving way too many memories. So right now, I'm not, you know, like, oh, let's go relive more memories. Like, but I will do that at some point. Yeah, sometimes you know, teachers. The biggest problem with teaching is really bad teachers. What they'll do, aside from being just plain dicks, which I get it. You know, like sometimes I'm overly mean to Brandon for a reason because you know I adhere to the Yoda style of teaching, you know, versus the Obi-Wan style, which is I let you get your hand cut off if you don't listen to me. But that being said, a lot of our teachers or teachers in general, what they do is they see what you're doing And then they try to go, well, here's how I would do it. You're doing it wrong. Versus trying to figure out what it is you're trying to accomplish. And then, helping you accomplish the things that you're trying to accomplish or set you down the path to accomplish those things. And I think they also need to set up a realistic, they need to set you up, or anybody up for that matter, with a realistic expectation of how close you're going to get to that idea right now. You know? Like, just because you do everything I'm doing doesn't mean fucking tomorrow you're going to be drawing like me. I wish that were the case. But you're beyond the path to be able to produce what you're really talking about, not drawing like me or coloring like me or anything I'm doing. It's more like there's a level of quality that you would like to hit with your own art. And you want to know that you're on a path to being able to achieve that level of quality, consistently. So based on that criteria, here's what you should, here's where you should start to go down that. Here's what paths you should head down. Here's what you should be doing every time you draw. Oh, yeah, it's okay, Potato. I'm way past that right now, Like, it's all right. But I've talked openly about that scenario, so it's okay. But just telling people they're stupid or they can't do it, I think where I tend to lose it, so like Brandon's in the studio, right? So like I tend to lose it with that when I give advice and then he's just willfully not doing it. Like, I'm like, did you do that thing? I said, well, I did that one time. I'm like, so you did it once and like you just thought like fucking magically you'd, you know, well, not this time, but it's because I had to get this thing. Well, I can't help you if you're not going to fucking do the things I tell you to do. We're going to make a video later tonight because there's some things on the flats I asked him to do and he didn't do it. And he's like, well, I don't remember how to do it. And I'm like, why didn't you call me up? Well, I was under time. I was like, well, when you don't do the things that I ask you to do, for me, it makes it so like I basically could have just done your job for you and got it done right, Like, so if you're going to help out, you have to help out doing it the way I want it done because there's a reason for it. It's called the long shortcut, And I'm very like aware of how long it'll take someone to do something right. So like if I need some shit by tomorrow, I need to hand it to Brandon yesterday, at the very least, because I know how quickly he'll move when he's doing it correctly. And I'm not going to sit here and yell at the guy for not doing it and not getting the job done faster, I mean, within a reasonable amount of time. Like, if it takes him a week, then I'm like, you fucker. Like, it didn't take you a week to do this shit. How many hours? 3 days tops. It's a 3-day job for Brandon. Like, I know. Don't fuck around. Got shit to do, man. I will never get a master's degree or a graduate's degree. So I will never be a licensed teacher. I am done with I got out of my student loans. I will never get another one. It's never going to happen. So this is where I teach, right? Yeah, I don't know how well it's coming through on the internet, but like trust me, this side is a big difference from that side. Because even sometimes I wonder, like, is it really worth it with all these color pencils? And I'm like, yeah, it's worth it. Makes a difference. I'm going to take this super bright yellow and just start to outline. And halo these areas. By the way, if it starts to stick up on your hand, if you feel it doing a little sticky thing because they're alcohol based, you should probably have a piece of scrap paper. I'll grab this. It's one of my little sketchy papers. Sitting around sketching when people are on the phone, wasting my time. Like I have to call customer service lines and they go, we'll connect you. You're like 25 minutes later. Well, here's my thing, man. I don't give people advice unless they ask. You know? That's why you don't see me. I'm not one of those artists that is making a post. Everyone's drawing boobs wrong, shit like that. I'm like, I don't care. What do I care how people draw boobs? You know, I really don't. Now, if someone asks me how can I do this, I would say I would put them on the path to achieving their goal. But if you try to tell people, like good luck, they're just gonna reject it. They don't want to hear it from you. They already think they're great. By the way, every one of those people I've ever met get nowhere with art long term. It's never happened. I haven't seen it work out. Yeah. I just go and apply what I know to my own art, and I go, see, look, worked fine for me. Like, let them fail. Fuck them. I mean, what can you do, right? They're not. They're not gonna. They're just. You know what it is, man? It's just gonna take a bite out of you too, creatively. Some people made a whole career on drawing things completely wrong, and they work out too, right? Like Rob Liefeld. You know, hey, I can't knock the guy. I'm like, hey, you know what? He's getting a paycheck for that. So be mad at the people who pay him, or buy all the books, or don't. Just be like impressed. You're like, wow. Will I half-ass my art like that? No. You know, but you know, at the same time, have I bought Rob Liefeld stuff? Yes. you know, when he really tries, I like it, even though it's not anything accurate. I don't care. You know. But when he draws half-assed, do I buy that? No. Am I going to pay Rob Liefeld $100 for a shitty sketch? No. If I wanted a shitty Liefeld sketch, I can do that myself. I'll just look at something he drew and redraw it. You know. You know. That's my thing too. Like, reasonably priced art from artists, I get it. Otherwise, I don't need to spend that kind of time or money on shit. Hey, props to him. But I was around when I was a kid. He was not Mr. Deadpool. You know, he was Mr. Youngblood. And X Force and fuck Marvel. He was Mr. Fuck Marvel. Like that's how I remember it. Until he went back to Marvel and then got thrown out of Heroes Reborn. I like how the Image documentary completely glosses over the fact that he got thrown out of Heroes Reborn, and Jim had to fucking get that done. My favorite part of that is when they just completely ignore that shit. I'm like, hey, 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 hey. you know? It's like, dude, I mean, I like the guy, but he's fucking hilarious. It's like, when Spider-Man 3 came out, and I worked on the t-shirts for that, right? So, like, I remember, um, And, Venom was in the movie. You didn't see McFarlane running down to Toys R Us and going, "Look at all the Venom toys, motherfuckers!" Like Rick from Rick and Morty. Tiny Rick! Like... like, Liefeld's the ultimate Tiny Rick. I don't know if he's easy. I don't know about all that. I don't know. I've worked with a lot of people who aren't easy to work with. As long as they cut a check, I don't give a shit. You know? If they stiff me, I'll never work with them again. And I'll learn my lessons. Tiny Rick. I was offered to draw some stuff for Evangeline, and there was no pay involved. So I said, nope. Not from Liefeld himself, but from people working on it. They just wanted to tell me, so there's no pay. It's just, really cool. Put it on your resume shit. I'm like, I don't need that. I can do that on my own. Appreciate it, but don't need the trouble. But I got hit up to do some stuff with some Disney stuff not too long ago. And they're like, well, we need it by this time frame. And I'm like, I can't do it that quickly. I'm like, because, I draw and color everything. Like, ink it, draw it, and color it. Which, by the way, I've tried to, like, get people to do that other shit for me, the inking and coloring part. I never get a publisher on board with that. So, or it's so fucked up. It's like, I really would rather not have spent my time on that. But, they're like, well, but it's a, let's say this wasn't it, but let's say it was like Tangled, whatever, right? So it wasn't Tangled, but it would be like, but it's Tangled, man, and I'd be like, I don't fucking like unless I'm getting a royalty check, I don't give a shit, like I can draw this shit any day I want, like I don't care if it's official. Like I've worked on official fucking shit. Like who cares, Like. Am I going to get a steady paycheck from Disney after this? Well, no, I mean, but, you get to be in the what? I'm like, fuck it. Out. Tiny Rick. Offer this for no possession. Put your resume. Do I ever just draw because I feel like it? Yeah, well, that's actually why I do all this stuff. Because I feel like it. But yeah, but it's usually stuff like this. See, like this is me just kind of like sketching on a little head or working on the gritty stuff, So... I like to have specific goals, so I find that helps my motivation. And then I can get out of it, When I'm done, I'm like, I did that. I'm out. I don't like the way that's worked out. I gotta fix that somehow. But I do sketches and stuff. Do I have? Do I? I do. I do. Where'd I put all that shit? I don't know where I put it. Yeah, there'll be more like that, just random little drawings and shit. So, give me a second. So I gotta get through stuff before I can do that. Go back to it. But I have stuff like that. But you know what? It's always part of some larger plan. Like, so I guess no. Everything I do is part of something to get me somewhere else. That's just how my mind works. I don't like not having a specific reason to do something. I tell you, man, goals will help you get places, you know? Well, here's my advice, man. Art is a great side gig, you know? Just tell your dad, well, who's going to design my fucking album covers and all my merchandise and my flyers? Who's going to design my t-shirts when I sell my merchandise for the jazz stuff? How am I going to market myself? I can't hire that. There's not enough money in jazz musicians, you know, for that. I got to be able to do it all myself. So it's just a minor. So say I major in jazz and I'm minoring in art so I can do all this other shit, you know? And then when you get old enough, you just flip it. That guy became an artist. Ha ha. Ha. And then on the weekends, you're playing, you know, jazz gigs for change, you know? Nothing wrong with that. We don't live in an all or nothing world as long as you're in a first world country. If you're in a third world country, that's a completely different experience. You know, as a musician, I'm probably going to need a YouTube channel or a MySpace. I'm going to be able to do my own branding. I'm going to need to be able to make my little logo and my t-shirt. You know, little music videos. I can put my art in there. You know, I can do paintings and I can put the paintings in a coffee shop and then sit down with my music and my guitar and play and sell my paintings, you know, like it's music, it's the soundtrack to my art. Look at that. Look at that shit. Look at that. Gotta be creative here, you know? Later, Roseanne. You know? You don't want to grow up in a world where you're only good at doing one thing. Trust me on that. It's a complex. The universe is a little too competitive for that. You imagine if you did a series of Zelda paintings and then you did all the Zelda music on guitar at a gallery. Come get a live Zelda fucking music, you know, and then buy my little paintings, you know. So the problem is I'm not good at art. I mean, art. There's a Freudian slip. I'm not good at music. I wish I was. This is all I'm really good at doing. This writing, and I think telling people like, I think talking to people in terms of like breaking things down in terms of ideas. That's kind of like my better skill set. Explaining things to people in a way that I think they can, you know, that can help them, right? Ah, no, I won't stop, Jake. You know, I got nothing else to do. Like, nothing else to do. Nothing else to do. I am actually going to have to stop though in about 30 minutes because I have to prep dinner. Well, if he's going to stop paying for guitar lessons, then you shouldn't have to pay for that bill. You know, it's his fucking dream, not yours. But don't tell him I said that. Then he's going to come over here and fucking spam my account. You tell him Brandon said that shit. You send him over to lead heavy at Instagram. Anytime you get some wild idea from me, you just tell him that Brandon said that shit. uh, I know that pesky mega potato. Always up to something. Old lead heavy just giving us fucking advice. I don't know how to get a job playing trombone. That's a whole nother trombone craft. I would look him up. That is out of my purview, as Jarvis would say. Let's get the other side done next. Only so much of this stuff you can add before, it just becomes a slippery mess of wax. That's good enough. What's up? Where did you and Lead Heavy meet? 2006 or 7 Wizard World in LA. 1 second. This is a funny story. Alright, so I'm at this con. At the time, I was going to these Wizard Worlds because they were way cheaper than going to Comic Con in San Diego. And I was sort of blacklisted from Comic Con for a while because I got a booth with a friend who didn't want to pay. So I had to cancel my booth, and they put me on this list of people who are not going, Anyhow, so I got into Wizard World 2004. Kind of a shitty convention, but at the time it was still, it was a great place to go and get experience. And I was getting job offers, so I'd go there and get job offers. I didn't really care what I sold. And they had just moved it from Long Beach to LA. And I was there with my buddy Joe, who used to be my travel buddy. We kind of went halvesies on tables at the time. So I'm sitting there, and Joe was to my right, and the guy to the right of him ended up being Brandon, who... What's going on? Really? Son of a bitch. Is it? Give me a second, guys. Sorry. had to empty out the pencil sharpener. Yes, Jake, this is a commission. So, where's my damn headphones? Where's my other? Where's my other headphones? This is so annoying. Must never let the headphone cords cross streams, right? Otherwise, it's just gonna be horrible. Alrighty. Okay. Now we can get back to fucking work. One thing always leads to another, right? So, anyhow. So, a little bit of a preface to this. My initials spell rad. Robert Allen Duenas. So, when I was a kid in the 80s, that was pretty cool. As the years go by, rad was not really something that fell out. I mean, right about the time it went from rad to bad. It's so bad. And then, you know, all the other weird 90s things, bodacious and, you know, stoking and bitching, you know, shit stoking, man, you know, all the weird shit. So it fell out of favor. But around 2007, you know, it was kind of popular again. And Joe was telling me, you know, man, you should be signing your fucking art rad. He's like, you know, I mean, your name, like, you actually have those initials. And I was like, I don't know, man. So this was a conversation we're having. He had with me because I was like, I could care the fuck less what I sign my name as, you know, my personal opinion. I just don't give a shit. But Joe was like, oh man, it's just, and I was like, whatever. So we get to con, and Brandon's sitting next to Joe, and turns out Brandon was signing his name Rad because his initials were BJ. Like, I don't know, it was weird. And so Brandon was like, oh, you're signing your name Rad? He's like, I signed my name Rad. I'm like, yeah, but my name is actually spells that. Like, I just happened to start signing it Rad there. And that was how the conversation started, right? And so I would see Brandon, you know, he bought a couple of commissions that year, and then I would see him off and on at these cons. He also told me he was a t-shirt artist, which I found was funny because we actually were doing licensed t-shirt, and he wasn't a t-shirt artist. He just made his own t-shirts. And so I would see Brandon off and on at cons, and then he'd buy commissions from me online, and then, you know, we started becoming friends after a long while. And after a long while, like a couple years ago, I finally got tired of his art sucking. And I was like, hey, so you actually want to fucking do something with this shit, or are you just fucking around? Now, here's the weird part about that story, right? Brandon swears to fucking God that that rad thing never happened. Now, if you ask him now, he would tell you, I just made all that shit up. He's never signed his name Rad. To which I would counter, why the fuck would I conjure up that story? Like, like who the fuck cares? You know? I'm like, I guarantee you it fucking happened. You know? In exactly the way in which I said it happened. Because it's really fucking weird. And I think that trip to the con, he just came up with that idea. And so he wasn't really set on it. That was just him being... Brendan has this weird sense of humor where he thinks he's really clever. And so I think he was being clever. Now, we got in this argument once online, where we were streaming, by the way, and he's like, that's never happened. And I'm like, fuck you, that shit happened. So I went to Joe. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now, Joe has no problem telling me I'm full of shit. You know? I've known Joe for a long time. You know? And so I brought up the story. I'm like, you remember when we met Brandon at Wizard World? He's like, and he signed his name Rad. I'm like, oh shit, you know, like I did the Key and Peele, like, you know, oh, like I ran around did a touchdown, woo, you know, and Brandon was like, I don't give a fuck what you guys say, you guys are just friends, and I'm like, like Brandon, why can't you just say you're wrong? Like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong? I mean, why can't you? What's so hard about just saying you don't remember it? Because, I mean, and so that's why I always clown him when he gets shit wrong, because I'm like, he never remembers anything. He lives off Mountain fucking Dew. You know? I'm like, you killed so many brain cells, you don't know what the fuck you're remembering. Eat some probiotics, man. You know? fucking yogurt or some shit. But that shit happened. So since then, I've been signing my name Rad again because I was like, well, some dude fucking might just claim that shit. I mean, even if the guy had the initials Rad, what can who cares who signs their name what? Who gives a shit? Don't tell me I made that shit up because that's crazy. That's crazy town, dude. I don't have that in me to make up. You know what I mean? Like, and this is the guy who used to tell me, like, this was a couple years ago, he was like, I'm really big on my branding. His name at the time was Not Worth a Sketch. Later, potato. His name at the time was Not Worth a Sketch. And I'm like, why is your name not worth a sketch? I'm like, isn't that telling people that you're not worth fucking anything? Like, you're not worth them paying money for, well, not worth the shit, not worth this. I'm like, so you're relating yourself to shit? I'm just trying to figure out the through line here. Like, I try to give him a bunch of names, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck what your name is. You need to work on your fucking art, bro. You know what I mean? Like, your fucking name's Brandon. Gives a shit. Yeah, worst brand name ever, dude. And he wouldn't listen to me, dude. He would not fucking believe it. You know? And so then, like, the only thing I could get him to do was, I told him he loves Scotty Young, like old school Scotty Young shit, not so much the newer shit. So I said, well, back in the day, Scotty Young used to have all those guys, Galloway and them, back in 2003, 2004, were on Lead Heavy. So Lead Heavy's still taken, but why don't you just add the A and keep that? I mean, look, there are other people who've done that. He's not using it anymore. It's ScottyYoung.com. So just, if you care that much, he's like, well, it has heavy in there, and that's saying I'm fat. I'm like, but Brandon, you're just a big guy. Like, even if you fucking were nothing but muscle, you would just be a big, heavy dude. Like, they call that a heavyweight. That's not like making fun of their. Look, you got real fucking ego problems. You see how this just evolves, right? Into like he has this image of him. So he actually in this conversation was stupid enough to send me a picture of himself in high school on the soccer team where he was all thin. I'm like, what are you, fucking Al Bundy? Did you used to play high school football? I mean, you did. You played high school football, right? Like, football is known in Germany. So this gets funnier and funnier, right? So I just keep going off. He's like, man, look at you. You just got jokes. I'm like, yeah, I got tons of jokes, and I fucking think if I stream this shit, people would all agree with me because you're fucking crazy. Like, you're a crazy person who really thinks he's just like, you think you're a beautiful, awesome celebrity, and you're kind of like a joke to yourself, and you shouldn't be. Like, you want some serious shit? It's time to get serious, bro. You know? Like, get serious, dude. Fucking actually produce some great art. So, whatever. He's... Like I told him, I said, it doesn't matter to me if you're successful or not in life. You see, I don't have any investment on this. I care in that I care about all artists. I think artists fight with one another, and fuck one another over way too often. I've seen it. I've been in art departments, I've seen it happen. From art directors to, entry-level artists to whatever. I've just seen it across the spectrum. So I'm like, I care that you're successful in that you're at least being able to produce I can't guarantee produce the things that you would like to produce. I gotta finish my sentences. I can't guarantee fame and fortune. I can't even attain that. So no one knows who the fuck I am. But I'm not gonna sit here and produce a bunch of janky weird shit, and call that my art style, And I sure as shit aren't gonna call myself Not Worth a Sketch, motherfucker. Like that's the craziest fucking name I've ever heard. Almost though. See, you think that's the craziest name ever, but Joe, my other stupid friend, decided he was going to stop being an artist and be a musician one day because he had it in his head that he can sing and play the guitar, which he can't. And so he teams up with this guy, right? His buddy. His last name was Mount, and my last name. So they were trying to come up with a name like the guy Mount. He was singing, and Joe was doing bass. So it was two guys. One guy lead guitar singing, the other Joe just did bass and then backup vocals, harmonizing. So I used to use their music because I thought their music was really fucking interesting. I'm like, I put it as the theme song for the podcast when we were on iTunes for the first 40 episodes. So if you go on to the playlist on YouTube, you go to playlist podcast archive, listen to the first Any of the first 30 episodes, you'll hear that music. And their music, their band name they came up with themselves, they came up with a name called Mount. That was going to be their name because the lead singer's last name was Mount. And I'm like, and their main gig was at this place called Lestat's, which is like in sort of um, the gay community part of town. Like it's an artsy part of town, right? Largely a gay community, and I say that because they got giant, they got stores full of like leather strap-ons and shit. It's whatever. It's an artsy town. And I told him, I said, if you have, if Joe, if you and your buddy go and play music at this goth bar, and your name is Mount, they're gonna think you're a gay couple or you're available. I'm just letting you know. So if you get propositioned, you just, you know. He's like, no. I'm like, sure enough. So they changed their name to check this shit out. Worse than Mount, Pet. He's like, yeah, our name's Pet. I'm like, what? And he's like, it's planetary evolutionary theory. Because my Joe likes science and shit. So I'm like, why don't you just call yourself six string? No, what is it? Six string theory. Like because you guys get guitars and you can put the theory in there. Like Six String Samurai, that movie where the Buddy Holly guy and the sword and the guitar. I'm like Six String Theory. Six String Theory. Like he's like, oh man, we're gonna stick with Pet. I'm like, that's fucking amazing. So I like put their music on as the podcast and refuse to ever call them that. Now here's the kicker. You think, well, okay, that's kind of an interesting story. No, the payoff is his buddy, the guy Mount, started listening to the podcast because I was playing his music and thought that was really cool. And who doesn't want to hear their own shit, right? After listening to my podcast, though, he then decides to become a full-time artist, and he quit the band. So I broke up planetary evolutionary theory. And that's how I met Brandon. Not worth a sketch. Fucking stupid. Please buy my art, because I'm not worth a sketch. Sketches are $20. Not worth a sketch. $20. I just couldn't figure that one out. You know? This is one of the strangest things ever. Gonna push this little snake body into the background. Alrighty, so it's getting to that part of the drawing now where, what time is it? 6:50. Oh, we're getting there, aren't we? So let me just add a few more contrast lines here. I'll blend a bit of them together. Some saturated blue into the darkest parts. Wherever you're putting your blacks, always put some saturated version of the color next to it. Really helps pop it out. Make it appear a little darker than it actually is, but still giving it some life. Toss some yellow into this. That a little bit more. The yellow color pencils work better than the light yellow Copics. If you want brightness. If you want brightness, use a light yellow color pencil. If you want to use the light yellows to create a matte color, then there you go. I still got to do some black outlining on that, so I should be careful about how much yellow I put down there. I'm just going to end up going over it. Alrighty. So, I got to go make dinner, and then I'll be back on a little later tonight, and we'll do black outlining and white highlights and shit, and call it that. It's a lot of effort. 2 hours. Just to do the background, but it's working. Talk to y'all soon. Peace. Oh, there we go. Dum, dum, dum. Not worth the sketch. Not worth the sketch.